movies, or just chilling out and more. Expertly curated for any mood, occasion, or activity. Extra channels let you discover new music and enjoy even more variety from every decade and music style you love. Plus, you can watch some of your favorite SiriusXM shows with SiriusXM Video. And you can do it all along with listening in your car as part of our music and entertainment plan. Right now, we're offering SiriusXM subscription plans for as low as $6 a month, plus fees and taxes. Call 844-711-8800 to find out more about these amazing offers.
Talk radio on SiriusXM Patriot. Breitbart News Daily. The David Webb Show. The Willtown Majority. Stacy on the Right. Just the News Radio. Sonny's Corner. The Morgan Ortega Show. Breitbart News Saturday. Breitbart News Weekend. And more. Find them all on SiriusXM Patriot. To hear SiriusXM Patriot, activate your radio by calling 844-711-8800 or visit SiriusXM.com/go.
Amazing moments happen so much at SiriusXM. We want you to see them. SiriusXM Video lets you watch your favorite SiriusXM shows on the SiriusXM app. Groundbreaking interviews, amazing in-show moments, behind-the-scenes footage, live performances, all come to life in a way you only imagined before. Plus, you can create your own personalized Pandora station based on the artist you love. And hear over 100 extra channels filled with ad-free music for every mood or occasion. Get your first 6 months of our Platinum plan for only $8.33 per month, plus fees and taxes. Just call 844-711-8800 to take advantage of this amazing offer.
You gotta get this. There you go now.
I think I'm recording.
Oh, I see. You gotta get this. You gotta get this.
If you've been thinking about buying a home, you need to be in the zone, the home buying zone. You need a game plan to win in this great real estate market. The Big C team at Equity Zone Mortgage has all your bases covered. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, purchasing your dream home, refinancing, consolidating debt, or even considering a reverse mortgage, contact the Big C team at Equity Zone Mortgage today. They have the lowest closing costs and they'll close your loan on time, guaranteed, or they'll pay your first mortgage payment. And they even have a 3.5% purchase down payment grant that can get you into a home with little money out of your pocket. It doesn't get more clutch than that, folks. Score big on the biggest purchase of your life. Call Equity Zone Mortgage today at 1-800-772-8624. That's 1-800-772-8624. Or apply online at equityzonemortgage.com and tell them Big C sent you as heard on the Big C Sports Podcast. License number 018.
Deportes, bonjour, vini vini vici. Let's get ready to rumble. Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton of Big C Sports. This is Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to me and people who love the universe, and that would include you. What a beautiful day in the neighborhood. A beautiful day in the neighborhood. A beautiful day in the neighborhood. Won't you be my neighbor? Shut up! It's 3 o'clock in the morning. That wasn't me. That was the fireworks going off. And some people thought it was me and my fireworks, but it wasn't. That's okay. You get what you get, and you don't complain if that makes you here on a beautiful Tuesday, July the 2nd, 2024. Today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard in the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them sent you where the good Lord split you. And hopefully the good Lord didn't split you too wide. I have been seeing a lot of wide splits. I've been seeing a lot of wide splits today. It's okay if you have a wide split, as long as you're comfortable with the wide split. If that makes sense, dude. There's something in insurance called the income gap. It was given to me by True Choice, as we do work with True Choice in helping people get their annuities. We're going to be the largest actuary in the country by the end of this year. But that's what's happening with the RDC team and the Big C team. I want to say on Big C Sports Podcast, I always produce the show. I direct the topics. I broadcast all the shows. I do all the sound effects based on the platform provided by the agency. We could all use more laughter in our lives. And ice. It's like 105 degrees in Denver Hills, California. And then the commercials are done. The stats are provided. I even do the storytelling. And dude, I do the play-by-play. Runners on first and third. They count for the pitch. Curveball. Swung on. In deep. Left field. Back to the wall. Home run. Say hello to my little friends. I love seeing the girls love the long ball and men love to hit deep. And I'm going to be hitting deep with Reparations versus Project 2025. I said Reparations versus Project 2025. You're going to hear it on Big C Sports Podcast. What's Project 2025? It means you have no more rights. United States of Russia. Take your head out of your assets and pay attention to what's going on with the Supreme Court. And then the show's uploaded to 29 podcast platforms out of New York City and streaming on 4 TV platforms: Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Amazon and Fire TV. And then I never missed a show since starting Big C Sports with the crew back in the days at Salem Media. And I don't plan on missing shows now. Even with vacation coming up, I don't miss shows. I just ask God for praise. Imagine when God says, yes, Big C, I'm finally going to give you what you've been asking for. You have not because you ask not, the book of James chapter 4 verse 2. Sometimes you got to ask more than once. But I want to tell people today, I'm going to tell you about some NBA contracts, but you're also going to hear that not one African American owns an NBA basketball team. Not one! So when you're all excited about, oh, somebody signed for $200 million. Somebody signed for $300 million. Somebody signed for $80 million. Not one African American owns an NBA basketball team. You can trace a lot of those owners back to Homestead. What's Homestead, Big C? Google the Homestead Act. That's where a lot of white Americans got their money. As they tell you, pull yourself up by your bootstrap. So you may give a black player $200 million. Donald Trump said that's a black job. A black job? I'll take it for $200 million, Big C. A white job is when you're worth several $1 billion because of the Homestead money, and now you're able to buy teams, and it appreciates to the eighth wonder of the world called compound interest. You don't want to miss today's show. I'm going to say touchdown, home run, 3-point play. Old man Willie, he's going all the way because he had a black job. The black jobs that were out there performing, shucking and jiving, and the white jobs were the owners. They own the teams. They pay you for shucking and jiving. Oh, Big C, there you go again with all that shucking and jiving. I'm telling you, there's a lot of stuff. You don't want to miss it because a lot of people have their head up their assets. You won't have it up your assets after today's show. You sound very loud, Big C. I'm trying to scream louder so people can hear me. What did Radio Raheem say in the movie Dumb and Dumber? He said, "Wake up!" Directed by Spike Lee. That was called Do the Right Thing, not never. Okay, but they said the same thing, man. Man, some people complain every time you miss something. You say something right, they say nothing. It's all fair and everywhere. I do want to say I love paying homage to the Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced, helping veterans and their loved ones get help. You know anybody going through issues, pick up the phone. Call 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And when you do, you want to give it some praise because we all need somebody to lean on. And I love leaning on it. If that makes sense to you, you can follow Big C Sports Podcast, the only sports show in the universe that will champion Project 2025 versus Reparations. And you got to decide what line you stand in. Take your head out of your assets if that makes sense to you. What a great day. Maybe it's the heat. You know, I was diagnosed with heat stroke one time. I was on top of Mama's house. I was trying to paint the top of the house. It was about 105 degrees. And they said, why you on top of the house for 3 hours? Because I had heat stroke. You lose what track of time it is with heat stroke. Sometimes I still feel like I got it. It's not a bad thing as long as somebody wakes you up every other day. That's all fair and everywhere. I do want to say I love doing what I do with Big C Sports Podcast. I'm going to take time to pay homage to the California Reparations Task Force because a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And I think I'm one of the in fact, I know I'm the only sports show in the universe that will champion the California Reparations Task Force because California is different out here. People are smarter. It's the 4th or 5th leading economy in the world. And oftentimes people from a smaller economy try to say, oh, that's not going to happen, Big C. Well, they don't know a lot of good things that's happening in the state of California today. And it's amazing how sometimes if you listen to the wrong people, you may think nothing's possible. But when you listen to the right people, you realize not everybody has access to the same information. Today I got from the inimitable Reverend Tony Pierce that the information that was happening at the Capitol today is a good thing. At the state Capitol in California. I mean, there's so many things that we are in front of when it comes to reparations, and not sitting back waiting for someone to say, oh, that's not going to happen. We got to believe that these things are happening, because today it passed. Senator Bradford's bill passed California Assembly Appropriations Committee, including a bill by Senator Stephen Bradford to stop using black images by law agencies in California as target practice. And the next meeting on the Assembly Committee for Reparations is August 15th, 2024. I said, you got to give that some praise. Give it praise, 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 because we all need somebody to lean on. I really do appreciate so much of all the things that people talk about that we want to do to make life better. You got to get the information. And that's what I want to do with the Basic Sports Podcast. I want to give you the information so you can take your head out of your assets. If you're sitting back with your head up your assets, waiting for Project 2025 to come and take away all your rights. Especially when I hear my black brethren saying, oh, we voted for the guy that had the 34 indictments, that had the largest housing discrimination against black Americans. They settled it in New York City. You got to understand that. We're going to vote for the guy where the Central Park 5, he wanted black boys to get the death penalty for a crime they were innocent of. You got people saying they're going to vote for that crap? Get your head out of your assets! That's read something. Read. You got to read. You want a black job? You don't have ownership. That's what he calls a black job. And people are starting to say, wait, why did the Supreme Court say a president has immunity? If that's the case, Biden, take your head out of your blah, 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 blah. Impact the court. Your opponent would. And then take away women's rights. What kind of woman says, you refuse, I'll not tolerate, let me say it my best woman's voice, I'll not tolerate having sovereignty over my body. How dare I have a right to choose? How dare I not let some old wrinkled up white man tell me what to do with my body, or my grandchildren, or my great-grandchildren? I'll not tolerate having rights. And you got some people bleached out hair out there trying to vote for that crap. Man, I thought it was a sports show. It is a sports show. You know, I'm called a white job because I own Basic Sports Podcast. And I speak the truth, so don't get mad at me. But seriously, ladies, if you're okay with having a man that wants to grab your grandchildren by the PU blah 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 and get away with it, your sisters and mothers too, and you vote for that crap, if he were a black man, there's no way you vote for it. Emmett Till got murdered they said he was whistling at a white lady. And now you got a white man said he's grabbing white ladies by the PUS blah 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 blah. And they're standing in line to vote for that crap, Project 2025. I guess 9 out of 10 people don't even know what Project 2025 is. I said 9 out of 10 don't even know what Project 2025 is. Because you can't wait to see, you mean this basketball player signed for $300 million? There's another signed up for $200 million? There's another guy that signed for $100 million? There's no problem with racism in this country. Because we've been bamboozled. Shucking and jiving. Can't wait to see who won the game. You can't let 2025 take America back 70 years. Oh, I don't believe in that, Nixie. Oh, they stripped away Roe v. Wade. Especially you women. They stripped away Roe v. Wade, and you vote for that crap? They're doing away with civil rights, affirmative action, all the things that Dr. King marched for, so that people can throw good marks on. They fought for this stuff. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're telling you they don't want that crap. They want to make America great again. What was America before the civil rights? It was white. Jim Crow, racism, black codes, redlining. Think about, is that what you really want, America? Really? Is that what you want your daughter to go through? When somebody assaults your daughter, your grandchild, and she could be prosecuted for having that baby aborted. Oh, God says no abortion. Really? Then why do they have contraceptives? Is that illegal next? Are they going to make men have vasectomies? Is that what they're going to do next? Does a man have to go to prison if he has a vasectomy? Or do they only want to punish women? Take your head out of your ass, bitch! If that makes sense to you. Well, that's my story, and I'm sticking with it because I'm passionate today. Because a lot of things, maybe it's a heat stroke I had several years ago, but I be that as it may. Ashe. I want to give praise to the California Reparations Task Force. I told you today's show is different. You think the 4th of July has fireworks? Wait until you get a load of today's show. May lightning strike if you vote Project 25. Project 2025 is a joke. It takes America way back to the days of no rights for women, very few rights for people who don't have power. And he's telling you that what he want to do. And some of you souls got your head up your assets. You don't pay attention. But I don't have my head on my assets, if that makes sense to you. I want to give praise to the California Reparations Task Force. I want to thank the Secretary of the State of California, the inimitable Dr. Shirley Weber, and also California Governor Gavin Newsom, and they mandated a task force. And I'm going to give praise to it. I'm going to give praise to Attorney Camila Moore. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise, part of the California Reparations Task Force. I want to give praise to Dr. Amos C. Brown. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise. He's also been on the Big C Sports Podcast. I want to give praise to the number one senator in the universe, United States California Senator Stephen Bradford. He's a champion of civil rights. That some people in Project 2025 want to get rid of civil rights. But he also crafted name, image, and likeness to help college student athletes get paid. He also sponsored a bill called the Ebony Alert that helps law enforcement put the same amount of resources into finding black missing children as they do in the Amber Alert finding white missing children. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise, and you should too. I want to give praise to Councilmember Monica Montgomery Stepp. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to Assembly Member Reginald Jones Sawyer. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise. I want to give praise to Dr. Shell Grill. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. I want to give praise to her attorney, Lisa Holder. She's brilliant. I love giving her praise. She specializes in diversity, equity, and inclusion that Project 2025 wants to do away with because they want to make America what it used to be before the days of civil rights. You say you love Dr. King? How do you dare vote for Project 2025? They're telling you what they're trying to do. Got the federal judges on his book, too. Think about that. I want to give praise to Dr. Javon Scott Lewis, professor at California Berkeley. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise. I want to give praise to Attorney Donald K. Tamaki. He's brilliant. I love giving him praise. Part of the Japanese Americans that receive reparations. Everybody can give that praise. I say, give that praise. Give it praise, praise, praise. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. You got to either lead, follow, or get out of the way. I say, let's find some leaders. I want winners. I want people who want to win. You want to crown them? Crown them. Yeah, I want to crown Big C Sports. I have a guide to protect, preserve, and transfer wealth. Resource Development Consulting, Inc., in conjunction with the law office of Scott Thibodeau and the law office of Attorney George Jones. The Missing Link, long-term care, solutions by the book, over 3 decades of experience helping seniors get their benefits, Medicare and You, taking care of tomorrow in California. It's called Medi-Cal. Your family and spouse can avoid the spend down for nursing home costs. Find out your options, 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624. I promise to use a specialized to navigate and maximize long-term care benefits, protection of your assets without a spend down. All paperwork and communication with all government agencies are handled by our staff of entitlement specialists, ongoing consulting to provide updates as necessary, benefits covering skilled nursing facilities, prescription medications, medical equipment costs, and more. Not only that, protection of your assets, including your home, thereby allowing you to leave a legacy for your family. Avoiding the nightmare of debt brought by the government's estate recovery program. It's called probate. And if you don't have a will and a trust, your property goes to probate. And they will look at all your assets. You can protect that if you have it in a trust. A smart business person put their assets in a trust. If that makes sense to you. A one-time processing fee versus monthly insurance premiums for the rest of your life. And not only that, I'm not done yet. Asset protection. Insurance coverage required by law, general liability, workers' compensation, lawyers specializing in living trust, Medicaid or Medi-Cal planning for long-term care, avoid probate, life insurance, veterans benefits, aid and attendance, pre-planning, and avoid the look-back period. There's no more look-back period in California. It protects your fixed assets, your bank account, checking account, savings account, money market accounts, your certificates of deposit, your life insurance with cash values, your fixed indexed annuities, your variable assets are protected, real estate, qualified money, IRAs, 401ks, other investments. Not only that, avoid capital gains. Let's say you buy a house for $100,000, and then 1 year later it appreciates to $1 million. That's a $900,000 capital gains. You avoid that when your property is in a trust. Over 3 decades of experience. Attention business owners, find out your other options to protect what your insurance does not cover. 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624. And when you do, you want to give it some praise because we all need somebody to lean on. What that song say? He said, lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. Oh, it won't be long when I'm going to need somebody to lean on. We want the real singer of that, Big C. I know you want the real singer of that, but can you just help me get along? I'm trying to get along. Sometimes somebody always want to put their 2 cents in. That's okay. I keep going, and I'll just keep going as well as I can, even when they put their 2 cents in. I want to say, sometimes people say, well, why would I go with RDC and the Big C team, Big C? I said, I'm glad you asked, because most people, they never give you an endorsement. They just say, do work with me, go through my company, go through my referral. But with the RDC team and Big C Sports, I like to give you references. References are like 1,000 words. When you do something or a business with somebody, you want to know who's done business with them in the past before you showed up. And I think that's important. And I'll tell you what our references are. We have the endorsement of Mr. George Jones. He's the chair of the California Black Chamber of Commerce. He's also the chair of the California Black Chamber of Commerce Foundation. And then Mr. Leon Woods. He's resource development consultant, also works with many of the top lobbyists in California. He endorses the RDC team. We have Attorney Scott Thibodeau, one of the top estate planners in Northern California. He's part of the RDC team. We have Miss Cheryl Brown. She's the chair of the California Commission on Aging. She endorses the RDC team. Ask anybody if they have that endorsement outside of RDC. We have Mr. Ray De La Cruz. He's the CEO of Resource Development Consulting, works with many of the top people in California, had the endorsement of the top legal mind of CalPERS, the late Robert Carlson. We have Mr. Alex De La Cruz. He's the founder of American Veteran Benefits. Not only that, we have Charles Curry, the co-chair of the National Black Wall Street Project, also consultant with RDC team, and also owner of Big C Sports Podcast. I endorse the RDC team. Not only that, we have Double O, part of the PAC committee for the National Black Wall Street Project. She's also a consultant with the RDC team. And not only that, has her own economics awareness talk show called Let's Eat. You can Google that on Access Sacramento. That's my story. And I'm sticking with it. Give that some praise. I say give it praise. Because we all need somebody to lean on. And before I finish talking about some sports, I want you to hear something that you need to hear, because they say a mind is a terrible thing to waste. When you hear this speech, Project 2025 versus this speech, they're trying to get away from endorsing this speech and honoring this speech. Listen with your own eyes and ears.
I had a conversation a couple days ago about handouts and how these right-wing memes, these Republican memes, have infiltrated the Democratic debate to suggest that, ending welfare as we know it, all those kind of things are somehow, great and noble things, when we're not dealing with the underlying problem, which is that there's no economic opportunity there because of insane trade policies and because of Reaganomics. And Martin Luther King spoke to this. Jim and Shane, this is clip number 4. Martin Luther King spoke to this sometime back in the early 60s. And I thought this was a really interesting quote.
Google Project 2025.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest. which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today, many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with. And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Millet is strike! Reparations now! Reparations forever! I want you to hear something that takes about 20 minutes on Project 2025 versus reparations, and you make the call.
Central to the idea of the American dream lies an assumption that we all have an equal opportunity to generate the kind of wealth that brings meaning to the words life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, boldly penned in the Declaration of Independence. The American dream portends that with hard work, a person can own a home, start a business, and grow a nest egg for generations to draw upon. This belief, however, has been defied repeatedly by the United States government's own decrees that denied wealth-building opportunities to black Americans. Today, the average white family has roughly 10 times the amount of wealth as the average black family. White college graduates have over 7 times more wealth than black college graduates. Making the American dream an equitable reality demands the same U.S. government that denied wealth to blacks restore that deferred wealth through reparations to their descendants in the form of individual cash payments in the amount that will close the black-white racial wealth divide. Additionally, reparations should come in the form of wealth-building opportunities that address racial disparities in education, housing, and business ownership. Given the lingering legacy of slavery on the racial wealth gap, the monetary value we know that was placed on enslaved blacks, the fact that other groups have received reparations, and the fact that blacks were originally awarded reparations only to have them rescinded, provide overwhelming evidence that it is time to pay reparations to the descendants of enslaved blacks. Welcome to yet another episode on the unpaid invoice of history, reparations for the ravages caused by slavery. Before we continue, don't forget to support our works by hitting that like button in front of you. Share with your families and friends to keep spreading our eye-opening black narrative, and kindly subscribe to help in building the rising membership of this channel. Your support means a lot to us. In 1860, over $3 billion was the value assigned to the physical bodies of enslaved black Americans to be used for free labor and production. This was more money than was invested in factories and railroads combined. In 1861, the value placed on cotton produced by enslaved blacks was $250 million. Slavery enriched white slave owners and their descendants, and it fueled the country's economy while suppressing wealth building for the enslaved. The United States has yet to compensate descendants of enslaved black Americans for their labor, nor has the federal government atoned for the lost equity from anti-black housing, transportation, and business policy. Slavery, Jim Crow segregation, anti-black practices like redlining and other discriminatory public policies in criminal justice and education have robbed black Americans of the opportunities to build wealth, defined as assets minus debt, afforded to their white peers. Bootstrapping isn't going to erase racial wealth divides. As economists William Sandy Darity and Derek Hamilton point out in their 2018 report, What We Get Wrong About Closing the Wealth Gap, blacks cannot close the racial wealth gap by changing their individual behavior, that is, by assuming more personal responsibility or acquiring the portfolio management insights associated with financial literacy. In fact, white high school dropouts have more wealth than black college graduates. Moreover, the racial wealth gap did not result from a lack of labor. Rather, it came from a lack of financial capital. Not only do racial wealth disparities reveal fallacies in the American dream, the financial and social consequences are significant and wide-ranging. Wealth is positively correlated with better health, educational, and economic outcomes. Furthermore, assets from homes, stocks, bonds, and retirement savings provide a financial safety net for the inevitable shocks to the economy and personal finances that happen throughout a person's lifespan. Recessions impact everyone, but wealth is distributed quite unevenly in the US. The woeful inadequacy of a government-sponsored safety net was made apparent in the wake of economic disasters, like the 2008 housing crisis and natural ones like Hurricane Katrina in 2005. Those who can draw upon the equity in a home, savings and securities are able to recover faster after economic downturns than those without wealth. Disparities in access to healthcare, along with inequities in economic policies, combine to make black people more vulnerable to negative consequences than white individuals. The United States and governments around the world have paid reparations even when they had no part in inflicting the damage. So why is it that black Americans haven't been compensated for centuries of slavery followed by decades of segregation? This was the question addressed by a panel of experts brought together by the New York State Bar Association's Task Force on Racism, Social Equity, and the Law on Monday night. The discussion took place 2 days after 10 people were gunned down in a supermarket in a black neighborhood in Buffalo by a white supremacist who scrawled, "Here's your reparations," on his assault rifle. Author A. Kirsten Mullen pointed out that the United States government has paid reparations to Japanese families who were interned during World War II, families who lost loved ones during the September 11th attacks, and to Americans held hostage in Iran. The federal government even paid reparations to slave owners for the emancipation of their slaves in the midst of the Civil War. Thomas Kramer, associate professor at the School of Public Policy at the University of Connecticut, detailed how Germany reimbursed victims of the Holocaust and how Haiti was forced to pay reparations to slave owners. Albany Law School professor Anthony Paul Farley, a former federal prosecutor, said that maybe due to the fact that the systems of oppression that shackle and demean black Americans remain in place. Even if checks were cut tomorrow for the highest amount you could imagine, there are procedures in place for white power to recoup it all the day after tomorrow, said Farley. Farley described how black Americans face higher arrest rates, lower wages, and a more fragile economic existence than their white counterparts. He attributed that to systemic defamation by the United States government of black Americans. Our government has a way of teaching everyone black people's place in society, he said. We as lawyers are all familiar with reputational harm. We know what defamation is. We know what it costs if you have a bad name. But we don't think of the ways our government has, for all these years, been busy producing a bad name for black people. Black people have such a bad name that before a black person even gets to a job interview, or walks into a dealership to buy a car, or walks down the street, way before they have ever arrived, there are myths and stories that have formed around them, and people have natural reactions to that. Farley said that defamation comes in the form of how the government sanctioned slavery and then segregation, and how the legal, education, financial and medical systems in the country treat blacks. William A. Darity Jr., a professor of public policy at Duke University, said that many Americans have come to see black suffering as morally correct. If we introduce a wealth program, we have to prepare for a violent response, said Darity. 30% of the population will resist any positive social change on behalf of black people. Darity and Mullen are both pro bono counsel to efforts in California to study reparations. Their conclusion from their involvement is that reparations must be made on a national level. They say the scope of payments needed to address the wealth gap between white and black Americans eclipses even the largest state budgets. Darity said that using the formula of 4 acres and a mule, which was promised to freed slaves by General William T. Sherman during the Civil War, but later reversed by President Andrew Johnson, would necessitate a reparations fund of between $1 to $3 trillion. However, Darity noted that 4 acres and a mule was only one way to measure reparations, and it fails to take into account centuries of negative actions taken by the US government against blacks. This is only one component shaping the wealth gap. There are still the consequences of discriminatory home ownership programs, the destructive effect on black businesses of the federal highway program, and much more. Aside from the sheer size of payments, Darity and Mullen say that tracing the descendants of slaves and singling out those responsible in one state is difficult. California, for example, only has a short history of slavery due to its being founded later in the life of the nation. And as Farley posits, black Americans as a whole, regardless of whether they are descended from slaves, have borne the brunt of racist policies and the government's defamation. Asked where he would begin to implement reparations, Farley noted his credentials as a former federal prosecutor before advocating for the abolition of prison and the police. "We know prison doesn't make people better. We've essentially abolished prison for white people, and yet we incarcerate a higher portion pro capita than the Soviet Union, than apartheid South Africa. We incarcerate more per capita than the People's Republic of China. Chains look good on black people to most Americans," he said. For the descendants of the 12.5 million blacks who were shipped in chains from Western Africa, America has come to a genetic birth defect when it comes to the question of race, as stated recently by the US Representative Hakeem Jeffries. If America is to atone for this defect, reparations for black Americans is definitely part of the healing and reconciliation process. Black Americans are the only group that has not received reparations for state-sanctioned racial discrimination, while slavery afforded some white families the ability to accrue tremendous wealth. It is important to note, nonetheless, that American slavery was particularly brutal. About 15% of the enslaved shipped from Western Africa died during transport. The enslaved were regularly beaten and lynched for frivolous infractions. Slavery also disrupted families, as 1 in 3 marriages were split up, and 1 in 5 children were separated from their parents. The case for reparations can be made on economic, social, and moral grounds. The United States had multiple opportunities to atone for slavery, each a missed chance to make the American dream a reality, but has yet to undertake significant action. A major instance was right after the Civil War, when Union leaders concluded that each black family was to receive 40 acres and mules left over from the war. General William Sherman had signed Field Order 15 to this effect and allocated 400,000 acres of confiscated Confederate land to black families. Yet, after President Abraham Lincoln's assassination, President Andrew Johnson reversed Field Order 15 and returned land back to former slave owners. Instead of giving blacks the means to support themselves, the federal government empowered former enslavers. For example, in Washington, D.C., slave owners were actually paid reparations for lost property, that is, the formerly enslaved. This practice was also common in nearby states. Many black Americans with limited work options returned as sharecroppers to till the same land for the very slave owners to whom they were once enslaved. Slave owners not only made money off the chattel enslavement of black Americans, but they then made money multiple times over off the land that the formerly enslaved had no choice but to work. There's never a bad time to do what's morally right, but the United States has had prime opportunities to atone for slavery. In the 1930s, the United States was reeling from the 1929 stock market crash and was firmly engulfed in the Great Depression. The Franklin Roosevelt administration implemented a series of policies as part of his New Deal legislation, estimated to cost roughly $50 billion then, to catapult the country out of depression. Current estimates price the New Deal at about $50 trillion. 2 particular policies of the New Deal fell short in redressing America's racial wrongs: the GI Bill and Social Security. Though white and black Americans fought in World War II, black veterans could not redeem their post-war benefits like their white peers. While the GI Bill was mandated federally, it was implemented locally. The presence of racial housing covenants and redlining among local municipalities prohibited blacks from utilizing federal benefits. White soldiers were afforded the opportunity to build wealth by sending themselves and their children to college, and by obtaining housing and small business grants. Regarding Social Security, 2 key professions that would have improved equity in America were excluded from the legislation: domestic and farm workers. These omissions effectively excluded 60% of blacks across the US and 75% in southern states who worked in these occupations. Roosevelt bargained these exclusionary provisions in the legislation on the backs of black veterans and workers in order to propel mostly white America out of the Great Depression. There are other policies and practices that contributed to racial wealth gap. Government-sanctioned discrimination related to the 1862 Homestead Act, redlining, restrictive covenants, and convict leasing blocked blacks from the ability to gain wealth at similar rates as whites. Separate from slavery, damages should be awarded to black people who were harmed by these policies and practices. The US government owes lost wages as well as damages to the people it helped enslave. In addition to the lost wages, the cumulative amount of restitution for individuals should eliminate the racial wealth gap that currently exists. According to the Federal Reserve's most recent numbers in 2016, Based on the survey of consumer finances, white families had the highest median family wealth at $171,000 compared to black and Hispanic families, which had $17,600 and $20,700 respectively. Taking a look at some good objectives which promise to make a great impact in implementing reparations is the aspect of 1. College tuition. College tuition to 4-year or 2-year colleges and universities for descendants of enslaved black Americans is a great step. People should be able to use the tuition remission to obtain a bachelor's degree or an associate's vocational or technical degree. Tuition should be available for public or private universities. Considering the racial gap in the ability to obtain degrees at private schools, this part of the package will further help to reduce racial disparities by affording more social network access and opportunity structures. 2. Student loan debt. This is another great step in the right direction of reparations, as student loan debt continues to be a significant barrier to wealth creation for black college graduates. Among 25 to 55-year-olds, that is about 40% of blacks compared to 30% of whites have student loan debt. Blacks also have nearly $45,000 of student loan debt compared to about $30,000 for whites. Recent research finds that blacks are more likely to be allocated unsubsidized loans. Furthermore, graduates of historically black colleges and universities, compared to predominantly white institutions, are more likely to receive subprime loans with higher interest rates. Universities including and Princeton Theological Seminary, which is the second oldest seminary in the country, are aiming to atone for the fact that the sale of slaves helped to fortify their university endowments and establish them as elite institutions of higher education on a global scale. Descendants of the slaves sold by Georgetown and Princeton Theological Seminary are now entitled to full rights and benefits bestowed by those universities to obtain degrees across the higher education pipeline. The Virginia state legislature voted for some of its state universities to atone for slavery with reparations. Other universities, along with state legislatures and the federal government, should follow suit. 3. Down payment and housing revitalization grants. Down payment grants will provide black Americans with some initial equity in their homes relative to mortgage insurance loans. Housing revitalization grants will help black Americans to refurbish existing homes in neighborhoods that have been neglected due to a lack of government and corporate investments in predominantly black communities. Given recent settlements for predatory lending, low and fixed interest rates as well as property tax caps in areas in which housing prices are significantly devalued should be part of the package. After accounting for factors such as housing quality, neighborhood quality, education and crime, owner-occupied homes in black neighborhoods are undervalued by $48,000 per home on average, amounting to a whopping $156 billion that homeowners would have received if their homes were priced at market rates. As gentrification occurs, blacks are typically priced out of neighborhoods they help to maintain, while the historical and current remnants of redlining and restrictive covenants inhibited investments. Some black Americans are being forced from their family home of decades because of tax increases as neighborhoods are gentrified. This is an important point because some 2020 Democratic presidential candidates aim to redress the racial wealth gap by focusing on historically red-line districts. Perry's research shows that these policies fall short of capturing a large segment of black Americans. 4. Business grants. Black-owned businesses are more likely to be located in predominantly black neighborhoods that need the infrastructure and businesses. However, black business owners are still less likely to obtain capital from banks to make their businesses successful. This reparations package for black Americans is about restoring the wealth that has been extracted from black people and communities. Still, reparations are all for naught without enforcement of anti-discrimination policies that remove barriers to economic mobility and wealth building. The architecture of the economy must change in order to create an equitable society. The racial wealth gap was created by racist policies. Federal intervention is needed to remove the racism that undergirds those policies. Reparations are payments, monetary and otherwise, given to a group that has suffered harm. For example, Japanese Americans who were interned in the United States during World War II have received reparations. While Americans generally think of reparations as monetary, Michelle Bachelet, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, in the office's June 1, 2021 annual report, states, "Measures taken to address the past should seek to transform the future." Structures and systems that were designed and shaped by enslavement, colonialism, and successive racially discriminatory policies and systems must be transformed. Reparations should not only be equated with financial compensation, they also comprise measures aimed at restitution, rehabilitation, satisfaction, and guarantees of non-repetition, including, for example, formal acknowledgement and apologies, memorialization, and institutional and educational reforms. Reparations are essential for transforming relationships of discrimination and inequity, and for mutually committing to and investing in a stronger, more resilient future of dignity, equality, and non-discrimination for all. Reparatory justice requires a multi-pronged approach that is grounded in international human rights law. Reparations are one element of accountability and redress. For every violation, there should be repair of the harms caused through adequate, effective, and prompt reparation. Reparations help to promote trust in institutions and the social reintegration of people whose rights may have been discounted, providing recognition to victims and survivors as rights holders. President Obama outlined the political difficulty of reparations on his podcast with Bruce Springsteen, Renegades, Born in the USA. He said, "So, if you ask me theoretically, are reparations justified? The answer is yes. There's not much question that the wealth of this country, the power of this country was built in significant part, not exclusively, maybe not even the majority of it, but a large portion of it was built on the backs of slaves. What I saw during my presidency was the politics of white resistance and resentment, the talk of welfare queens and the talk of the undeserving poor, and the backlash against affirmative action. All that made the prospect of actually proposing any kind of coherent, meaningful reparations program struck me as, politically, not only a non-starter, but potentially counterproductive. We know the monetary value that was placed on enslaved blacks and the productivity of their labor, as well as the amount of the racial wealth gap. We've seen other groups receive restitutions while the federal government pulled back reparations for black Americans. Accordingly, if we want to close the racial wealth gap and live up to our moral creed to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, a federal reparations package for black Americans is in order. This package should include individual and collective public benefits that simultaneously builds wealth and eliminates debt among black citizens. We assert that it should be similar to the Harriet Tubman Community Investment Act, which was recently heard before the Maryland General Assembly, where Ray testified on its behalf. The Harriet Tubman Community Investment Act aims to atone for slavery and its legacy by addressing education, homeownership, and business ownership barriers. With April 4th marking the 52nd year since Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in Memphis, we think it is appropriate to end with an oft-forgotten quote from Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech that he gave in 1963 in Washington, D.C. This statement is still one of the unfulfilled aspects of this policy-related speech. We have come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. This brings us to the end of this video segment. Hope you find it of great interest. Tell us what you think in the comment section below. Your opinion counts a great deal. Don't forget also to support our works by hitting that like button in front of you. Share information with families and
reparations now. Reparations forever. Reparations now. Reparations forever. You know, I love doing Basic Sports Podcast, but it's not just about me. It's doing a show on sports. There's a part of my brain that says if you Google PROJECT2025 to become an autocratic nation, we can't be that in the United States. We just can't do that. And for me, when I see athletes and their contracts are going through the roof, I realize that it takes your mind off the talk of reparations. Because people may look at a famous NBA athlete like a Jason Tatum who says nothing about reparations, just signed a $300+ million contract. There are other athletes who are signing multiple $1 million contracts. The only one that said anything about reparations was Jaylen Brown when he signed it last year, $304 million. But it makes you think, well, why do we need reparations? Look at these black guys getting $300 million. But it does not address the average person. and the discrimination that built up in this country. You heard about it any more than I can say it. But I just wanted to bring that part to the show today. There's something I want to finish with when it comes to sports, because I know a lot of times people don't think about reparations when it comes to playing sports because so many athletes are making so much money. But you got to know that all around the world, there are more and more people getting ready for the Olympics, the Olympic trials, the 200. Thomas defends the United States. When you think about it, there's a lot of great athletes. Gabby Thomas, an Olympic. Mackenzie Long. They're amazing athletes. And when you think about the United States track and field, the champion would find it difficult to handle a resurgent Sha'Carri Richardson, winner of the 100. Now, Thomas, however, came to Eugene, Oregon, ready for anything that came away with her second straight trials victory. It was a 21.81 seconds he ran in the 200. And the heats identified the prime contenders. Now, Sha'Carri Richardson, she ran a 21.99 to lead Abby Steiner at 22.29. And the first NCAA champion, Mackenzie Long, ran at 22.49, and Brittany Brown ran at 22.29 and won the next two. And then Thomas took the last one, an easy 22.11. So Richardson sparkled in the semis with a 21.92. Long won the second over Brown at 21.01 and 22.08. I beg your pardon, 22.01 and 22.08. And then Tamari Davis was third at 22.10. Aneva Battle ran a 2021 Olympian, did not advance. She ran a 22.41 in the last semi. So Thomas blistered a world-leading 21.78, leaving Steiner at 22.03 behind. Now, I'm saying that because the world's going to come together, and it's going to celebrate the Olympics. And it's the thrill of victory. It's the agony of defeat. And people get together and they celebrate their nation. And I, too, love the Olympic track and field. To me, it's amazing. But when you think about some of these athletes, they pay attention to the numbers that an athlete runs. If they run the 100-meter dash and a 9.98 for the men, or the women may have a winner of a 10.4. No matter what it is, it's always celebrated because of the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. And we love the Olympics. When Jesse Owens won the 1936 Olympics in Berlin, even Hitler congratulated him, as crazy as he was. But imagine track and field, if they made you start out on the start block as African American, and they let the white athlete start out on the 50-yard line or 50 meters. And that's what's happened in 2024. Even though there's opportunities, I'm going to grow Big C Sports into $1 billion corporation, along with the help of RDC team in real estate and financial services. And it's going to happen. I just feel that in my spirit. In the meantime, there are times when people can keep you out of something, but God can let you in. And I want to push for reparations because you just heard a great moment of intelligent speaking about how this country that was built by free labor by African Americans from 1619 to 1865, and then we had 100 years of Jim Crow. That Reconstruction took everything back, and in God's eyes, that was wrong. So hopefully, the people who have the right mind will reject Project 2025 and put your hands and your heart, mind, body, and soul into reparations, because reparations will stimulate the economy. And people know that. You know, good people, you people, and hopefully our beautiful, intelligent men and women of this country, they will stand behind doing the right thing, which is liberty and justice for all. I know the Supreme Court says that presidents should have immunity. Well, that's a clue to President Biden. I don't know if a convict can run for office. The Supreme Court saying yes, they can. Well, if you have immunity, then you can strike that down, President Biden. Stand up. As you stand up for the kickoff, and stand up for the tip-off, you got to stand up. Crack the court. Don't sit back and let somebody beat you up, and you sit there and take it. Put your hands up. Put your hands up, no matter who you are. I don't know any person that believes that women should not have sovereignty over their bodies. or that we should do away with civil rights, or voting rights, or the right to freely participate in American democracy. But Project 2025 is different. I want to play that with Basic Sports Podcast. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. I told you I'm different. It may be the heat stroke I had about 2 decades ago, but I drink a lot of ice water, and that helps me cool my body off. Well, I just want to say I love what I'm doing with the Basic Sports Podcast. We're in political season. You got to keep in mind, nothing in this country is free. Ask the white Americans that benefited from free labor, and they will tell you I'm wrong. Oh, you're wrong, Big C. Look at all this free labor we got. So when people say nothing's free, that's a lie. Because the people who owned slavery that was sanctioned by the United States government, they got a lot of free labor. Everything was free. Black Americans couldn't own anything. Couldn't get life insurance policies. Couldn't own a business. Couldn't own property. Couldn't own nothing. Had to pull ourselves by our own bootstraps. And now you say you don't want to pay reparations? May Latin strike! Reparations now! Reparations forever! As we get ready for the Olympics and stand up for NFL football, NBA basketball, Major League Baseball, not everybody's signing these multi-million-dollar contracts. And I know it gets your mind off of what's going on, but reparations should happen no matter what people think of President Biden or former promoters, 34 indictments. That's a joke. But whatever it is, we got to get out and vote. You got to vote like your life depends on it. Because if you don't, then shut up when you don't get what you want. Well, that's my story that I'm taking with it. As I always tell you, you got to get out and vote. You got to vote. You got to vote. If you're going to drink, don't drive. If you're going to drive, don't drink. Because mothers against drunk drivers are mad. And fathers against drunk drivers are mad. It's one of the easiest things not to do. You can walk it off. You can sleep it off. But don't let someone you love get behind the wheel of a car and start drinking after they've been driving. The life you save may be your own, or somebody that you love, or somebody that loves you, or somebody that somebody else loves. That's what I'm saying. I want to also give a shout out to Lynette Jackson. She's the owner of Diffusion Consulting Services, also part of the RDC team, and really looking forward to her. She helps with estate planning, tax planning, etc. And also she's aligned with helping get loans through Best Line funding with the Big C team. Really do appreciate Lynette Jackson. Lynette Jackson, I told you I'd mention your name. May Latin strike if I didn't mention your name. I want to say for all you people that love sports, keep your eyes on reparations. It's going to stimulate the economy in California. It's been happening more and more leaps and bounds. Don't be afraid. Be not dismayed. I will strengthen you. We got to make sure that we have a lot of people paying attention to the vote. Well, as I always tell you, I love paying homage to my beautiful family legacy. On my mother's side, my great-grandparents called them Mama and Pop. I really do appreciate them, love them with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. My grandparents, Muddy and Hezekiah, they were seers. They can look at a person and tell you a lot about their past, present, and future. Really do appreciate them. And then I could always depend on my mama, the most beautiful mama in the history of the universe. One of the Head Start program, a food program for the all-boys Little League baseball team to the championship of the universe. The best person I ever met in my life, always saying rise and shine. I love my mama with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. On my father's side, my grandparents, Alberta and Albert Curry, they were pastors. They had 3 churches. They owned 2 gas stations in Oakland, and they also owned 40 acres of land. I remember being 8 years old, walking through the hallway about 10 o'clock at night. I felt someone touch me in my forehead. She said, "What are you doing, young man? Going to get some more cookies?" I said, "What are you doing, Grandma? It's 10 o'clock at night. You normally go to bed at 8:30. She said, "What are you doing, young man? Going to get some more cookies?" I said, "Cookies and baby crap, what I'm doing, Grandma. I'm going to get my reparations." And I said, "A couple of cookies wouldn't hurt. It's been a long time." But she said, "There's something about your voice, and I love hearing you speak." Now I'm on 29 podcast platforms, streaming on 4 TV platforms, and I'm going to be the only sports show in the universe that champions reparations now, reparations forever. I love my grandparents with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. My beautiful father, former United States Air Force fighter pilot, chief mechanic, always making sure planes can fly high so we can all stay safe at night. My dad always saying develop your mind to its highest extent. I love my dad with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. My beautiful brother Todd with that bombastic voice, sound like thunder and lightning with top of speak. A voracious reader, always saying go forward. He said when you go forward, don't look back. because you don't have much backside back there anyway. I said, wait a minute, Todd. I love my backside. My backside's good enough for me. That's my story. And I'm taking with it, love Todd with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. I love my beautiful daughter, Daisy. The most beautiful daughter in the history of the universe. College graduate, 2 degrees with honors in 3.5 years from a major university. She said in the very first interview for Big C Sports Podcast back in the days of Salem Media, and then NFL Monday Night Football for the first time started broadcasting live on the Wall Street Business Network. Daisy, I always trust God, Isaiah 54:17, that no weapon formed against you will prosper. I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. You can be anything you want to be. Always, always know that. And then my beautiful, handsome son, Malcolm, the most handsome son in the history of the universe. Malcolm's college graduate, very smart, every night a good man, always trust God, Isaiah 54:17. I pray that no weapon formed against you will prosper. Malcolm let me say trees. I used to always get the newspapers to look up stats and numbers for players and teams for the Big C Sports Podcast. One day Malcolm said, Dad, why don't you just Google it? And a light bulb went off. I've been Googling ever since. Now I'm on 29 podcast platforms, and I'm streaming on 4 TV platforms, Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Amazon Fire TV. One day Malcolm said, Dad, you want to see Big C Sports on TV? I said, sure. He said, pick up the remote, aim it at the TV, and say, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll see your show come up. That's before it was even on the air. Now I stream it on 4 TV platforms, Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Malcolm, I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. You can be anything you want to be. Always trust God, Isaiah 54:17. And then Big C, with all that wisdom knowledge over the years, like my great-granddaddy coming out of that barn always saying, you got to believe, you got to believe, you got to believe. Saying, let's get ready to rumble. I love to say welcome to the show. SB nominated Big C Sports Podcast. You see, I have no scripts. I have no 3-bit teleprompters. I have no producer in my ear. All I have is this gland in the brain called the pineal gland. The ancients called it the third eye. You want to crown him, crown him. They say that's how you talk to God. That's why I'm always screaming so loud. I'm screaming loud so the universe can hear it. When I talk to God, I want God to give me my dreams. I thank you, God. I give you praise. You know my prayers, God. You know what I've been praising. And I thank you, Father, that it's done in Jesus' name. I love doing Big C Sports Podcast. Well, I want to say back my popular man, back in the day, there's a man known by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He's known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, he said, you float like a butterfly and you sting like a bee. Rumble, young man, rumble. He said, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Ali said, I'm so pretty, I can't possibly be beat. And every time I listen to Big C Sports, I want to champion reparations now, reparations forever. And then I float like a butterfly and I sting like a bee. I always end with this message. There's never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. No man, woman, or child should ever have to go to that crap. If somebody's hitting you, I only hit you because you make me mad. Call 911. If somebody's kicking you, I only kicked you because you make me mad. Call 911. If somebody's choking you out, I only choked you because you make me mad. Call 911. No man, woman, or child should ever go through that crap. They need more leader in your life. Leader is an acronym for love is the answer. So as I tell you on every Big C Sports Podcast, you believe in Project 2025? Or do you believe in Reparations 2024? That's my story. I'm sticking with it. You got to champion reparations now. Reparations forever. Say it with your heart, mind, body, and soul. You got to champion reparations now. Reparations forever. Say it like it's already happened. You got to champion reparations now. Reparations forever. I thank you. I appreciate you. And I hope that you have a super fantastic day.